This is your sign to go after your dreams of being a flight attendant. If you want to be a flight attendant, watch this video because I'm going to convince you. It's 2025 and I really think you should go after your dreams. Hi, my name is Sam and I used to be a flight attendant. I was a flight attendant for 6 years and I quit last year in 2024. So I have all the deets on what you need to know about being a flight attendant. We're gonna go over 7 different things to really help you solidify your decision and why I really think you should try it out, see what it's like, because although it's not for everybody, I think this experience that I gained as a flight attendant over the past 6 years was really valuable, and I feel like a lot of people can learn from it, and it's a fun job. So a little bit about myself. I'm from Canada. I speak Canadian flight attendant. I flew for Team Teal, which is also known as WestJet. I originally started with WestJet Encore. Probably don't even know about WestJet Encore anymore because they have ceased their operations in Toronto back in 2022. They ceased operations because, I don't even know if I can say this, because they were just reorganizing our flying to out west because that's where they thought that the business was going. But I had left WestJet Encore before all of that. I left WestJet Encore like just a year before they ceased operations, but I was at WestJet Encore for 4 years, and I do have a video all about that. But just to sum it up, WestJet Encore is a regional airline. I operated on smaller planes, the Q400, which is one of my most dear in heart aircrafts. I will always have a special soft spot for the Q400. It is a tiny aircraft with 78 seats, and I had a lot of great memories at WestJet Encore. It was just very tight-knit, always saw the same people, always flew with the same people. Everybody was really kind and nice, and you just felt like a family there. I was there for 4 years, a little bit longer than I wanted because I did stay a little longer than I wanted to, because with WestJet Encore, it is a subsidiary of WestJet, which is what people really know us for, like our jets. No one really knew what WestJet Encore was or thought it was like the same airline. Technically it's the same airline because we wear the same uniform, but it really serviced as 2 different airlines because we had a different contract, and their flight attendants that can operate the jets cannot operate our Q400s. The same goes for flight attendants that are trained on the Q400 cannot operate the jets, if that makes sense. So technically, let's say they're 2 different airlines. So in order to go to mainline, we had this flow program. And the flow program, there's a certain eligibility before you're allowed to be able to transfer. At the time, the contract was only a certain percentage, so not everyone had the chance to, and you had to have a clean file and all that stuff, so it took a little bit. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go to mainline because that means a lot more destinations, a lot more flying to the US, and dealing with a lot more people. I wasn't sure if that was for me, but ultimately I decided to just give it a chance. So I did, and I did that for 2 years. I actually completed my 2nd annual training. My experience overall, it was good, but the reason why I left is because I needed a change of lifestyle. I did feel like the workplace was getting a bit toxic. I just feel like there wasn't any career growth for me. There wasn't any career progression, and I needed something more stable and just more growth opportunities in order to build a future for myself. So that's why I left. Let's talk about the requirements of being a flight attendant. The age-old question is, do airlines require you to speak a certain language? Now this depends if the airline is hiring flight attendants that are language specific to be on route specific pairings. So I know some airlines, they're hiring certain languages. The reason why they ask for certain languages to be spoken is so those flight attendants could be positioned on those routes so that they can communicate with the passengers. So let's say I know there's if you speak a certain language, you might get placed on specific routes more often because your language qualified. Because WestJet did not have this, or at least when I was there, they did not have a language specific route. But I know some airlines do. You would be able to hold certain routes. Let's say I speak Cantonese, And obviously you have to go through testing because they need to make sure that your level of Cantonese proficiency matches their level. Then you would be placed, I'll probably be placed on like the Hong Kong routes. If that's what you want, I think it's great, but you just have to be able to match up their level of testing. I did a language test at WestJet. I believe they probably scrapped it, or I don't know if they brought it back again, but there was language testing, and it's a computerized test that basically test your level of proficiency, and that could be based on the requirement of hiring you. It's sometimes not mandatory, but definitely like very nice to have if you can speak another language. Spanish, French, Mandarin, like languages that are commonly used. You're gonna be so useful in like not even just working at an airline, but like even in like everyday job. Like just having another language in your toolkit is great. Another requirement is obviously you have to be over the age of 18. I don't know if it's 18 or 19 in Canada, but you have to be over the age where you live, where you can serve alcohol. I know in Canada you have to be over the age of 19 to work, I believe, because that's the like smart serve legal requirement. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm probably gonna put like a bubble here. And then I know like for requirements for like school, no, you don't have to go to a flight attendant school. I'm gonna link a video right here. I did go to a flight attendant school. No, you don't have to go. I went because I personally feel like I needed something like that to succeed in a career like this, or job. I think people hate when I call this a career. Yeah, I think it prepared me very well because actually I seem really confident on camera, but I'm actually pretty quiet in real life, and it takes a little bit to warm up, and I would not have really gained the confidence that I have now if I actually didn't go through with being a flight attendant. So I have to put all the respect my journey as a flight attendant, because I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't be a flight attendant. So with language, with education, everything should be listed in the application. So whether or not like you need post-secondary, usually you don't, you just need to be graduated high school or have an equivalent to graduation of high school. And then customer service experience is very important, so try to get customer service experience. I started working when I was in high school, so I used that experience and just giving examples and actually liking working with people, because you're going to be working with a lot of people. If you hate people, sorry, not sorry, but this is not the career. Again, I said career. If you don't like people, this is not the job for you, because you're going to be dealing with people all the time, and you're going to be dealing with people in a metal tube, and when you deal with people in a metal tube stuck for hours, they turn to a different type of situation. Like they are different. So who should apply? Anyone that's interested in working with people, in building a different lifestyle. You need to have more than just I love to travel to be a flight attendant, because you need to have an actual why. Why do you want to be a flight attendant? It can't just be I love to travel, because you're not going to get very far in this industry if you just have that on your mindset. Like working with people, you have to like working with new people all the time, liking being stuck in the airplane for long hours at a time. You have to be able to deal with stressful situations, deal with medicals, deal with things on the spot, and like make quick decisions, like all of that. You have to be comfortable with trying to be a nurse. You have to be comfortable trying to be a firefighter, because we do all those things in flight attendant. I would not like to do those things, but you are going to be trained in those, and you have to be comfortable in doing that. So anyone who is comfortable in playing all the hats, because the flight attendant wears all the hats when you're on a plane. Believe it or not, you're trained for these things. You go through a whole couple weeks of training. It goes from anywhere 4 to 5 weeks of training, depending on how many aircrafts you need to learn. And then every year after that, you have to go through another few days of recurrent training just to brush up on your skills and make sure that you're still qualified to fly as a flight attendant every year. So I would just say anyone who is even remotely interested being a flight attendant, I would say go for it, but just make sure that you understand that being a flight attendant is not just serving someone Diet Coke and cookies and pretzels. It's literally being there for safety and obviously comfort. But the bulk of it that you learn in training, the bulk of the information and the skills you learn in initial training is how to evacuate aircraft, how to save someone in the event of a medical situation like a heart attack or a stroke, or having an allergic reaction or a seizure, or dealing with a bomb threat, a gas leak, a depressurization, a decompression, those kind of things. Now, why should you apply? Obviously, we glamorize the life of a flight attendant, how we get like, you know, flight benefits, how we get like travel benefits, like those kind of things. But you have to think about something aside of that. Like, those are great perks. But personally, I love that as a flight attendant, but for me, I was just working so much to the point I wasn't really I wasn't taking advantage of the perks. But the reason why I stayed that long is because obviously I was comfortable with the lifestyle. I literally could have majority of whatever days off I wanted. When I got to mainline, I was not having my weekends off because it's very seniority based and everyone wants their weekends off, so I was kind of stuck with just like the random weekdays off, which was totally fine. I could book my dentist appointment on a random weekday and be fine. I don't have to rely on the weekend, which I liked, or have like a random Tuesday off to go to the mall when it's empty. Like, I love that. Now working 9 to 5, I don't get that luxury. I actually have to do those things like after work, after 5 p.m, or have to go on the weekend when everyone is there. So like I said before, you have to have your why on why you want to apply. Let's say it's your childhood dream and you want to fulfill it, or you've always wanted to be a flight attendant, or you want to be a flight attendant because the flight attendant on your flight really inspired you to be one. Like, I have been reached out by people that watched my videos, and I actually flew with in real life saying they watched my videos and saying that I helped them out, which to me, that's inspiring. I aspire to inspire people to go after their dreams and make decisions for themselves and just live life to their most authentic self. Like, I feel like that's great that I'm telling you to go after what you want and you actually go for it. And I love meeting people that say they watch my videos and they say I'm putting out useful information. And I know people want me to post more about being a flight attendant, but unfortunately I'm not a flight attendant anymore, so I feel like the content I kind of post is, I feel like it's kind of irrelevant. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm kind of rambling on that. Now the third thing I want to talk about is the pay. How much do flight attendants get paid? Now, people think flight attendants get paid a lot of money, and I'm telling you now, my current role, I took a pay cut. I took quite a bit of a pay cut in order to start this role, because I just feel like I didn't have much experience in this role, and I really wanted to leave flying, and I just knew I had to start somewhere, so I took a pay cut. But the quicker you start, or the earlier you start, is the faster you kind of accumulate the pay, and the pay it's not that great, and I think the conditions need to be better, because I think when I first started I was getting paid $25, and then only after 6 years I only had like a $10 increase in pay, and you don't get much of an increase every year. I'm speaking on my airline. You get a January increase, and then you get another small increase at your 1 year mark. So that's like an equivalent of like 80 cents or something like that. So that's your raise. In order to make more money as a flight attendant, you have to fly more. You get a minimum amount of hours, and I will link a video that I also made talking a little bit more in depth about pay. I can make another video just going over that. I can even make a video of how much I made in 1 year. I probably did talk about that in that video, but I could probably make an updated one for 2024, even though I didn't fly the whole year. But the pay is so low. Like, you are not making more than 40k a year. I think 40k is average. You're not making more than that, and that's when I didn't fly that much. But I think people who fly like at their maximum hours, which is like, I think maybe like 130, which when I'm already at 120 hours, I'm already burnt out. So I don't know how people are doing over 130 hours. But then again, like, the more you fly, the more money you get in taxes, the more they claw back from you. So it's not that great to be flying that much either, because you're not really making more, if that makes sense. And it's just a lot of work, because they calculate like your flying hours, so I would have to try to pick up the highest credit of flying and not like the unproductive pairings. At my airline, we didn't get paid for boarding, we don't get paid for delays. Like most flight attendants, we don't get paid for boarding, we don't get paid for delays. Boarding is probably the most hardest part of the routine duties as a flight attendant. I think it's the longest part and the part where it takes the most effort and the most out of me. And also delays. And delays happen like a lot. Like even the wintertime. Those long delays from like de-icing up until we get off our takeoff. Say we only get paid once the doors close and the parking brake is released. So when the plane is moving, once the parking brake is set, that's when we stop getting paid. So the door is still open, we're waiting by the gate. Flight attendants are not getting paid. Flight attendants don't even get paid for boarding. So if you understand how flight attendants don't lift your bags and stuff, that's also another thing that like I could get into, like why flight attendants shouldn't be lifting your bags. But you see flight attendants in other airlines doing it. But anyways, I'm not that person. I don't lift bags. Now, how to apply to be a flight attendant? So I get this question all the time. Honestly, you literally just have to make a Google search about like, just search like flight attendant hiring in wherever you live. So let's say if you live in Toronto, flight attendant hiring Toronto, flight attendant hiring in Vancouver, Calgary, like wherever there is a major base, major cities usually have a flight attendant base, or like wherever the airline's based out of might be an easier way to see if they're hiring or not. So doing a quick Google search. But typically I would say airlines hire right before the busy season. So right now is January. I feel like airlines might start hiring in like right now actually, January, February, hire for spring break, or they'll start hiring February, March for like the summertime. Like usually around that time, because training is around like 1 to 2 months anyways. Yeah, just airlines are always hiring unless something happens like COVID. They freeze for a while because there's just like too many employees and not enough work to be thrown around. So make sure you update your resume and highlight your customer service experience, make it look professional, talk about like your people skills, and make it tailored to the job, and make sure you do research on the company, like know the routes where they fly to, just like prepare for the interview. The thing you don't want is go to an interview unprepared. And then now we're going to talk about initial training and annual training. So I mentioned this before, but once you get hired as a flight attendant, so the hiring process, it usually goes as you apply, you hear back, you might get like an interview, whether it's like a phone interview, and then you might get a phone interview and then an in-person interview. And then after the in-person interview, it might be either like a one-to-one interview or a group interview because they want to see how well you can work with others. After that, if you pass that, you might get language testing, and then you have your drug testing, and then you have your physical testing. So physical testing is where they kind of test how physically fit you are, and also the reach test. So some airlines have a required height that you have to be, because you have to be tall enough to reach emergency equipment that is in the overhead bin. And if you've seen like certain planes overhead bin, it's actually really tall, and they just want to make sure that you're able to reach that in case you need to access it, which hopefully you don't have to, but you just need to be able to do it. Speaking of initial training, so after you do that, if you pass everything, you get an offer to start initial training. Initial training is where they'll teach you everything about the airline, how they operate, how to operate the planes that they do, and whether or not like you have to get specialized training for each aircraft, because each aircraft most likely has a different way of operating their doors, each airline has a different way of operating their emergency procedures, so you have to learn all that. They have different like shouted commands that you need to learn. Every airline has a little something different that you need to memorize because they test you on it. And during initial training, you have a bunch of exams that you need to pass, and some of them have a minimum passing mark. Some of them will give you grace on passing some exams. Some of them not so much grace. If you fail something, you're immediately dismissed from training. So it's very important to be studious and study and practice during that time. Initial training is probably one of the most stressful times I hear about all the time, and even till my last annual training I do. So you do annual training. I'll get into that like in a second. But initial training, I felt actually quite prepared because I did go to flight attendant school. But I know a lot of people who's just coming fresh into this training and they were doing something else, they were stressed. But because I basically went through initial training throughout the past 2 years at my flight attendant college, like I felt like I was prepared. Like I felt like I already did this twice. And I talk about annual training. So after you pass your initial training, you do annual training every single year. And this could be like a 1-day thing, a 2-day thing, or a 3-day thing, because usually they kind of split it up. Like one day you kind of do all of your evacuation drills, and then there might be a day you do your first aid skills, and then a third day you do a CRM course, which stands for Crew Resource Management. It's basically facilitating how you work together with other parts of the airline, like working with pilots, working with dispatch, like people that make up the airline industry, and seeing how we all work together. Because even though we work together day to day and everyday life, communication is super important, especially in this industry. So they want to make sure like they are up to date with certain things. And in this course they kind of talk about like aviation events that have happened and what we can learn from them, and what like actual internal reports have happened in the company and how you can learn from those as well. And now we're gonna save the best for last, and I have it written all here because I am running out of breath saying these. But the last things I'm gonna talk about is the pros and cons of being a flight attendant. So obviously we're gonna start with the pros, because why wouldn't we? So pros of being a flight attendant, obviously the big one is the flight benefits and the travel benefits. As a flight attendant, obviously you get flight benefits with your airline. Now each airline is very specific. It could be you literally pay $0, and when they say you fly for free, you're technically not flying for free, because you actually still have to pay airport tax. Now airport tax, it really depends on where you fly. Some airports charge a very hefty fee, and I think like other places, but I know the US, it's way cheaper to fly in the US than it is within Canada for some reason. And then I know some airlines give out like business class passes, whatever, for their family, I think, but the airline I did work for did not do that. So they have passes. And then we have this thing called buddy passes, which is my airline, we had like 12 that we get every year, and then you could transfer it to friends or family. But the drawback is everything is standby. Like if you're paying for a discount, it's technically standby. You can also buy confirmed flights, which is like half the price, but sometimes you might be able to find a full fare price, which is the same price as that. So you definitely have to look around. But let's talk about buddy passes. Now buddy passes are a nightmare, and I hope never give out a buddy pass, because I've had too many situations where there's one situation I almost got fired because of it. And I thought I could trust the person that I gave my buddy pass to, but you really can't trust people, especially when they're flying on your pass, because it always comes back to the employee, depending on how they act towards other people, how they act and how they dress. So you're responsible for that, because it always gets linked back to you. And there have been stories that people got their flight privileges taken away because of their buddy pass holders. And then also there's other tourism benefits, like you get discounts for like hotels, discounts for like cruises, like I think car rentals, like those things. Being in the airline industry, you actually get like a tourism discount at certain places, so that's really cool. I don't get that anymore, so I have to pay full price for everything. Another pro is the flexible lifestyle, as I mentioned before, is having your days off, being able to work around the work schedule. So if you work another job, like that's casual, that is able to work around the flying schedule. Usually when you first start, the schedule is not that flexible, because you kind of have to work with what you have, and depending on the season, you might not be able to trade. That's a whole nother thing I could get into. I feel like this video is gonna be way too long if I talk about all those things. The schedule can be flexible. Another pro is managing on your own, so you don't have a manager watching you all the time. Like you do have like a cabin manager or a lead on the flight. That also could be you if you work at an airline where everybody kind of have to rotate roles, or you have a designated cabin manager or lead, then you will have someone watching over you. But you don't necessarily are working a shift and the manager is like watching you kind of thing. I feel like I felt pretty freeing. Like I wasn't really reporting to anyone. In fact, I didn't even meet my manager at all. Like I've had like a million different managers in the past 6 years working at my airline. Another pro that I wrote is, you know, meeting new people, meeting people of all across the world, and like being part of their really big life events, and also being able to stay at properties, hotels that I've never would have had the chance to. Like I've been to a lot of like all-inclusive resorts, which are really nice, like to do at the airline, but you just gotta remember, like you obviously can't go crazy. I've never really stayed at a resort before I even started this job, so it's really nice. Now let's go on to the cons before we end this video. So the first con is seniority is everything. Like I said before, if you gotta start flying, you gotta start flying when you're young. Accrue the seniority as soon as you can, because seniority means everything when it comes to bidding certain destinations, when it comes to bidding. But seniority is everything. Another con is that you're not guaranteed your time off. Signing up to be a flight attendant, it means that you have to commit to working 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Like you couldn't be flying any day of the week. Fly Saturday, Sunday, weekends, Monday, Tuesday. Every day of the week, you have to be open to working that. You have to be open to working any hours of the day. So let's say you have to do a red eye. Like sometimes you can't say no. Sometimes no one's gonna want your red eye. You have to be forced to do it because you can't trade it away. Now you have to fly it. You have to work your flight. You can work really late flights. You can work really early flights, like early 6 a.m. morning flights, which you have to wake up like 4 a.m. and then be out the door to get in time for a 6 a.m. report. Or you have to work an overnight flight where you fly, like let's say 5 hours through the night and then you land at the sunrise. Like red eye flights, I don't miss because it's quiet, it's chill. But tell me why I always had like the medicals on those flights, and it's always the most taxing on your bodies, those red eye flights. And that's going into cons of jet lag, fatigue, body. I did have a lot of fatigue with flying. I've never really experienced that much jet lag except when I flew into Europe, because I didn't really have a chance to fly into like Asia or anything like that. But flying at high altitudes definitely does take a toll on your body, so it's very important to take care of it. Again, it goes hand in hand with lifestyle and health. You can quickly get lost in a pretty bad lifestyle and neglect your health as a flight attendant, I feel, because, you know, with low pay and just being on the road all the time, it's really hard to kind of manage your diet and eating at these weird hours. Like there's times where it's just so busy on a flight that I just don't have time to eat. There's times where I had to literally tell passengers that I'm like, I cannot physically help you right now because I haven't eaten all day, and I literally have done that before. So please take care of yourself first. Another con is passengers. Like I said before, there's really crazy people out there, and more so I think after COVID, people have just become kind of unreasonable and impatient. So you have to have the patience to deal with a lot of types of people. Another con is management. It really depends on what kind of management you have for airlines, but I find that a lot of them, they most of the time don't really care about you. At least that's how I felt. And now working at a place where management actually does care about you, it's actually quite nice. And the last con is obviously above it all, like why do we do it? To get paid. Pay is low when you start, and it will be low for the first few years. You're not going to be making bank as a flight attendant. So with that, I leave you with a message. If you are wanting to be a flight attendant, I would say go for it, but please take consideration of everything that I said in this video. You will not be getting rich with this job. This job, I feel like it's an experience job. It's a job that you can pair with something else if you would like. If you want to experience the world, if you want to grow as a person, I think this is a great job to get started, especially if you're like fresh out of high school or you don't even know what you want to do out of high school. You should be a flight attendant because then you're working and you're also experiencing the world. So if you're like fresh out of high school, go apply to be a flight attendant. This will be the job that you kind of decide whether or not you want to stay, because I know some people, they either stay for a few years like I did. Like I hit my mid-20s and I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't think being a flight attendant is for me. Or you stay for 20 years and you retire as a flight attendant. Either way, I hope this video helps you make an educated choice, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.